Good evening, students. Yeah, we're talking about the history of English literature, and so far we have covered the literature from Anglo-Saxon period to till Geoffrey Chaucer. Okay, we know that is how gradually the development of literatures took place from scratch to the, let's say, a promising kind of change we had seen in the literary as well as in language development. But as the Geoffrey Chaucer come into the picture, we can see or we can observe that this change has got kind of miracle stuff, and it has given a kind of new norm, a kind of new identity to the English literature or English language. So as we have seen that how the English literature and its development had made a powerful um, tact on, let's say, not the tact, but a powerful move in regarding to the change of political as well as the social strata of the time. In that case, when we just go and try to find out the literature uh, after Chaucer, it had a bit uh, clumsy kind of stage where we can find a bit um, mm, ups and downs in the literature. Basically, this period was called as the period of chaos, where little enough to inspire and much to repress literary genius was the thing about this unproductiveness of the 15th century. We can find uh, the 15th century was most of unproductive in case of literature because there were several unfavorable conditions for literary productions. Specifically, when you talk about unfavorable conditions, the first thing come in front of us, that is the unstable government. The next thing, that is lack of genius people, uh, and then the thing come in front of us, that is we can call it as the stuff which had made the different, that uh, uh, unlike these two, we also can see the state of education. Specifically, in this period 15th century, we can find there's a low state of education. Means whatever kind of literature written, the writers or people who involved in this scenario, they didn't find the readers or the observers, even critics also. So as we just go forward and see the thing, we find that uh, the flourishment of the literature got stopped, and these unfavorable conditions for literary productions we can see throughout the 15th century. Universities, we can find, is buried deep in the medieval philosophy, and we can find these endless controversies regarding these medieval philosophies was come into the picture, and that's made the things that uh, not favorable for the production of good literature. Specifically, in this period, we can find that this War of Roses come into the picture, and which has made the situation bit worse. Okay, we'll come to the War of Roses soon, but yeah, before that, I would like to just tell you these things, that how uh, this literary development or this the literature of the period had made or let's say attempted to uh, keep alive himself, but it's not happened. We can find this rising middle class was one again, it's not a problem actually at that time, but For the literary productions, we can find there is a hostile to intellectual interest, and they're just looking for this mercenary and sordid spirit of the time, and that makes all the different as rising middle classes. They just we can find they just strive for the money, or just they they just looking for to get uh, extra income. But this was the thing became very what we can call it as hostile to this intellectual interest, and that's why this mercenaries and sordid spirit was increased in the society. So that makes all the difference. Specifically, this degeneration of the religion was the one persecution we can call it, and this degeneration of the religion was one of the theme which has made long lasting impact along with this war of roses. Basically this war of roses was 30 years struggles between house of yorks versus house of lancaster, two important houses of the time. We can call them houses, but uh, they were the two different dynasties. Okay, in that case we can see that this stage of the poetry in our last lecture I have told you about this thing. Poetry of the 15th century specifically is imitative poetry. Chaucerians, as we talked about it, English Chaucerians, Scottish Chaucerians are the two important aspects. Poetry of this time we can find it was hardly original, and kind of poor quality we can find in it. Lifeless, um, kind of adjective we can give to this imitative poetry of this time, and specifically it is a numerous and voluminous. Most of the volumes of the poetry come to the picture, but it was, as I told you, hardly original and poor quality kind of literature we can see. Okay, which come into the force in this period. So the poetry of 15th century, that is imitative poetry, that is hardly original. Quality was, when you talk about the quality, it's poor and lifeless. These are the things. In this period, we can find that is poetry just went uh, apart from the England, and it's come to the picture in Scotland. Uh, this was the period where, as I told you, a kind of working of situations throughout the England, and uh, poetry or the literature of the period they just try to spreading their hands, and somehow we can find that the influence of the William sorry Geoffrey Chaucer make made some impact on the surrounding countries, specifically the Scotland. So we can find this marked influence of Chaucer, and a special means specifically the originality of the sponsor was copied by these people, and they just try to make something new through it. Okay, so when you talk about this faithful rendering of nature and landscape that was depicted through the poetry of the Scotland people, and they had played an important role in the development of this kind of romanticizing the nature and depiction of the uh, nature and landscape on the vast level has took place in this period, and that's why we can find that the poetry of the early stage of the Scotland has influenced by the Geoffrey Chaucer, but on only in the technical way. The subjects they had chosen are from their own nature and from their own landscapes. Okay, one of the best example of it, that is Robert Henryson, who is considered as the true Scottish quality kind of poet. Okay, we'll come to him soon, as we just went through it. When you talk about the poetry specifically, this name Robert Henryson will come into our discussion. Okay, the second name I would like to mm, tell you here, that is William Dunbar. When you talk about the William Dunbar, he was the greatest British poet between Chaucer and Spenser. Okay, like Edmund Spenser, who come in the 16th century in Elizabethan era. After Geoffrey Chaucer, we didn't have any specific quality poet, but we can take the name of William Dunbar in this regard. He was the person that he is specifically his poem that the Thirstil and the Rose. mm, it was to commemorate. It was written to commemorate the marriage of James the Fourth of Scotland to the daughter of Henry Seventh of England. So it was one of the political marriage, or let's say political wedding, where William Dunbar had written a poem, "The Thirstil and the Rose." We'll again come back to the William Dunbar in a deeper sense. This is just take as an introduction stuff. This was the period where ballad literature come into the picture, and it's became very what we can call it, famous or powerful weapon to describe the message or to just give the message to the society. um, this ballad literature, we all have an idea that is it was sung in the manner where the heroic song or the description of the person's chivalry was go through it. So this ballad literature was increasingly popular and fostered a love of poetry among the people. Okay, and the name I would like to tell right now. You must have an idea about this one, and this is considered as the starting period of the ballad literature, and the poetry of this person called Robin Hood, uh, which was uh, sung in the different occasions in this period. Specifically, it's called as an Robin Hood cycle. Okay, ballad literature. In this regard, we have this. When we talk about this one, we must have seen this Robin Hood cycle is the kind of poetry, or the this is the kind of literature which had played an important role to foster the love of poetry among the people. ओके. आता जसं आपल्याकडे पोवाडे होते, शिवाजी महाराजांचे पोवाडे वगैरे ज्या गोष्टी आपल्याला बऱ्यापैकी आयडिया आहे, तशी रॉबिन हुड सायकल मधले जे काही पोवाडे वगैरे होते, वी ऑल हॅव एन आयडिया अबाउट द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ द रॉबिन हुड. ओके, ही वॉज द पर्सन who just who just looted the wealthy people and spread this wealth among the um, poor, and that's why he became very famous. So um, his bravery, or his enthusiasm, mm, then we can call it as his whole style was described in this ballad literature, and it has made more impact on the contemporary society, and it's happened in this 15th century only. So when we move forward and see, we can we can find that these are several things which had made a powerful impact of the on the particular time frame, or let's say the particular time literature. Okay. In that case, as we move forward, we can see the prose of the period. Okay. Yes, as I told you, we're just taking the overview right now, and then we'll move toward the deep study of this one. We're talking about the 15th century literature. So the prose of this period, we can find it uh, mm, more promising, as I told you. This period was also called as a age of barrenness, where very less literature has been produced because of the engagement of courtly people into the different kind of wars. But uh, still we can find that the prose written in this period had greater impact, and it was more promising than poetry. In that case, prose of this time, they were written for two different purposes. First one for instruction, and second one is for entertainment. Okay. So these are the two purposes of writing down the prose of the period. Um, in that case, I would like to tell you two to three names. First one, this Reginald Peacock was the one stuff. It was a kind of religious writings. Uh, Actually, this Reginald Peacock was engaging with these controversial topics of the time, and still it became very famous at that time. आता आपल्याला माहिती आहे की एखाद्या गोष्टीबद्दल काही कॉन्ट्रोवर्सी झाली तर ती जास्त फेमस होते, कारण की लोकांमधली काय म्हणतो ना आपण, उत्सुकता वाढते की अरे हां काय असणार आहे याच्यामध्ये. सो जस्ट लेट्स गो अँड चेक इट आउट. So the same thing happened about this one, that we can call as a Reginald Peacock. Sir John Fortesque was the person who has written one political treatise on the difference between an absolute and limited monarchy. So the difference between an absolute and limited monarchy was a political treatise. Um, in this period, we already had talked about the John Wycliffe, whose translation of Bible was the very famous stuff. Then Sir Thomas More's this Utopia, which we must have an idea about it. Most of the time, question has been asked on this Utopia. This was the period where Plato, okay, again Aristotle, Plato, this Socrates, Aristotle, Plato. These are the names which we can't deny, which we can't deny their presence in any form of intellectual proceedings of that period. Let's say we can see their influence in the literature, in astronomy, in math, and all stuff, but specifically in the philosophy. So, this Plato's Republic, it was translated in 1551. That is in this period only. So, it was considered as one of the famous prose literature of the period. Okay, William Caxton, we haven't heard about it. This he was the person who brought printing press into the England. We'll talk about him when we talk about the prose deeply. But still, these names we don't have to forget. This one, Roger Asham, that was another name where we can see his Toxophilus or School of Shooting, introduced by this person in 1545. But these are the some what we can say overview of the prose writers or some prose things which were famous in this period. But there is a one thing which has changed the whole scenario, that is the most of the popular interest in scripture has increased in this period. Okay, so scriptures, we can say it was became a center of attraction at this time. Okay, scriptures, first of all, they were used for religious purpose. Then uh, scriptures considered as prose for philosophy, and specifically, okay, to instruct common people. So when you talk about the scriptures, okay, they had started playing a vital role in this period. Specifically, they got used for religious purpose. आता लेट से की आपल्याकडे भगवद्गीता वगैरे हे आपण स्क्रिप्चर्स आहेत. Okay, we can call it scriptures. We know that is even today they getting used for the different purposes, but the first purpose of it is always a religious purpose. Okay, the second one, prose for philosophy. Specifically, as I told you, that prose writing has been increased in this period. So the writers of the period, what they have done, they had taken these scriptures and uh, specifically, mm, the sayings, or let's say whatever mm, messages these scriptures has given, they used as a philosophy. Okay, and that's why the use of the scriptures they took uh, for the philosophy. And the next one, specifically, they try to use the scriptures to instruct common people. And as we have an idea that church was one of the powerful segment of the society of this time, and these scriptures we can find these clergies or the religious person who belongs to the church. Only this person have had this access to the scriptures, and that's why we can find a kind of lot of corruption in the religion or the spiritual state of this society was took place at that time. And that's why these people like John Wycliffe and several others had played a role to change the scenario. So this is about the script, not only scriptures but about the prose of this time. Okay, any questions regarding this? Any questions? I'm telling you the overview only, but yes, we'll move towards the literature right now. Before moving literature, any questions regarding this? Please feel free to ask the questions. Yeah. Okay, I would like to put some important writers of the period in front of us, in front of you, and as we just move forward and talk about the literature of the period, uh, there were several people that we can call them as the Scottish Chaucerians, or we can call them as the imitators of Scott Chaucer, and they belongs to this period. And first of them was the King James First himself. King James First, his time frame 1394 to 1437. He was the one who follow Chaucerian model of this dream vision, the garden instruction of these allegorical figures, and he used this rhyme royal stanza to write down his work. But when you talk about he's famous for one work, and the name of the work is the King's Squire. Okay, you might have heard about this, the King's Squire, published to the play that was considered as the King James very important and famous work of the time. Yeah, hope you can see the screen properly. ओके स्क्रीन दिसते का झूम करू अजून थोडं can you see the screen properly or may I zoom it for you? Okay, no worries. So these are the Scottish Chaucerians, or the writers who belongs to the late Middle English period, and period is roughly from 1300 to 1500, but we know that is from 1440 to uh, 1340 to 1400, we have Geoffrey Chaucer himself, and these other writers, they belongs to the uh, literature, or the period after the Chaucer, and that's why we can find they were also called as an imitator of the Chaucer, and as they belong to the Scotland, they were called as a Scottish Chaucerian. Okay, the first one, King James first, his time from 1394 to 1437. Chief poem associated with his name is the King's Squire, that is the King's Book also, published to the play. As I told you, he followed this Chaucerian model of the dream, the garden introduction of allegorical figures. Uh, Specifically, as we have seen, Geoffrey Chaucer had come up with this uh, model of dream, that is the dream vision, and King James first, he himself follow the same in his works or in his writings. Okay, the second one who belongs to this age, as I have told you, we have taken his name before some time, Robert Henryson. Robert Henryson is time frame 1430 to 1506. You might have heard about this one. Mm, his well-known poem is Testament of Cresside. This poem is called as the continuation of Chaucer's Troilus and Cresside. Chaucer's Troilus and Cresside. The next one we have is William Dunbar. As again I told you, William Dunbar is considered as one of the major figure between the Chaucer and the Spenser. Um, this is the period of 2 to 3 centuries where this is the only person who had played an important role in the realm of the literature. That's why William Dunbar had very important place and a name in history of English literature, basically before this 16th century. Why? He was the one who known as the Rhymer of Scotland, or let's say the Chaucer of Scotland. William Dunbar. He was considered to be the chief of the Scottish Chaucerian poet. He was the one who had written more than 90 poems which were associated with his name. One of the important, or let's say most important one, is this Golden Tark. Specifically, this is called as one of the allegorical and rhetorical poem by William Dunbar. Next poem written by him, that is the Thistle and Royce, written in 1503. This is the poem which celebrate the marriage of James IV. We had discussed this point sometime before, and yes, these are the two very famous work written in the ballad form: the Dance of the Seven Deadly Sins and Lament for the Maker. These two are considered as his ballad works, but uh, he's the one, as I told you, he was the one who just stole the show, as considering himself as one of the greatest uh, mm, imitator of Geoffrey Chaucer, and he also developed the taste of the readers of the period. Okay, and that's why he had uh, got this name as one of the best writer between the Chaucer and Spenser. As we just go forward and see, we know that is after William Dunbar, we have this person, that is Sir David Lindsay, uh, who was considered as the last of the Scottish Chaucerian. Okay, but apart from these two, I would like to introduce two other person who belongs to the late 15th century, John Skelton. When you talk about the John Skelton, sorry, yeah, John Skelton, the first important or interesting fact about this person, he is considered the first poet laureate. Was considered as the first poet laureate. Yeah, but why he became the first poet laureate? Means even though we have William Dunbar and several other writers, why he considered the first poet laureate? Yes, any clue? John Skelton, first poet laureate, and why he considered the first poet laureate? Any idea regarding this? Hmm? The Boys of Court was his is his first famous poem. Have you ever heard about the Colin Cloud? Philippi Sparrow, and very famous Ballad of Scottish King. So whatever names I have taken right now, they all were the works written by John Skelton. Bow of Court, then this one, Philip Sparrow, Colin Cloud. Colin Cloud Come Home Again. That is, I'm not talking about this one. It was written by Edward Spencer. I'm talking about this uh, Colin Cloud only. Philip Sparrow was the another one, and Ballad of the Scottish King was considered as his famous work. But his Magnificence, written in 1516, is is an allegory in which this generous prince Magnificence is first destroyed by his own ill-advised generosity, then restored by good hope, perseverance, and related virtues. So, he was the one who had also depicted the good and evil side of the uh, human people or human society. Alexander Barclay was the next person who belonged to this age. Actually, he was a poet and priest. Alexander Barclay was uh, born around this 1474. Uh, Most of his works was the translation work, mm, but his very famous work in this regard, that is the Ship of Fools, written in 1509. Actually, it was the adaptation of the popular German satire. Mm, it looks forward to this Erasmus praise of folly, a very famous book of the time. Okay. The next name that this belongs to this age, that is Thomas Norton. Mm, Norton was first of all alchemist, and then he became the English poet. His Norton is best known for his work, that is Ordinal of Alchemy, written about 1477. As we move forward, we can see the different writers who belongs to this age, and their contribution to the English literature was unquestioning. But still, uh, as we just go and try to find out the writings, their what we can say, their enthusiasm towards the poetry, we can't deny. Only because of these people, the Middle English of the period was flourished a lot. Um, the next name, which I'm just going to take over here, it has the immense name and fame throughout the English society. The name of the writer is Sir Thomas Malory, and we know he is famous for his Mortar de Arthur, written in 1470. This is the work which had high place in literary history. Okay, this work is about the legends about uh, King Arthur and his knights. Looking back with this sentimental regret in this poem. Actually, it was inspiration for many modern poets like Matthew Arnold, A.C. Swinburne, then William Morris, and Tennyson. These are the people who inspired by Modern Day Author written by Sir Thomas Mallory. And uh, even though when we just go and try to find out the details of the poetry, we find some faulty sentences, little attention to the this grammar, but wonderfully racy and picaresque kind of work. Uh, we have this one, Sir Thomas Mallory's Mordred Arthur. So just go and have a look into this work. Uh, you may go for the summary also, but uh, you will get the total details of the work when we just go thoroughly this work. So, so Thomas Mallory was another famous person who belongs to this age. Okay, so after this kind of literature which we had discussed, I would like to tell you the another thing which is associated with the literature of the period, that is the contribution of the women, or let's say we can talk about the women voices which were associated with the literature in this period. The Routledge History of Literature in English had taken 2 to 3 names associated with this age. The first name in this regard, that is the Mary de France. Mm, we had talked about the Mary de France. She belongs to the late 14th century. Lays was her famous work, and she was the one who had this growing readership even before William Caxton's introduction to the literature, or William Caxton as one who had played an important role in the development of uh, the printing press in England. But he was the one, sorry, she, Mary de France, was the one who had gathered um, a numerous kind of mm, followers, let's say, in today's mm, scenario, we can call them followers, and the actual word is the readership. We can find this growing readership. We know that is at that time there was no paper or books were available, but still This lady managed to increase uh, her readership, and uh, the fan base for her was increasingly mad for her writing. Okay. um, yeah, the next name which I would like to tell you, that is Ruth Swita. She was considered the first woman writer in Europe. Okay, Ruth Swita, you must have an idea about this name. How to spell it? Ruth Swita. Yeah, Ruth Swita, first woman writer in entire Europe. When we just go and see the writings of these women had played an important role in the development of the literature of the period, as well as they had increasingly best fan base for them. Okay, then we had talked about this Christine de Pizan, belongs to the France. She has written her works in French literature, but still, first woman to be a full-time professional writer. Christine de Pizan. Okay, we're talking about the women voices. Women voices and Rhodswita, the name. Then Christine de Pizan. She was a she belongs to the France. Okay, this is her name. Belongs to the France, and she is the first full-time professional writer. Okay, first time, first full-time professional writer, I would like to say. Okay, this is her identity. Okay, I would like to tell you the name of her book. We'll discuss this one. The name of the book is Book of the City of Ladies. Book of the City of the Ladies. Book of the City. Book of the City of, sorry, not the only City of Ladies. Even though this is the kind of utopian book, we can say, but this one, Christian de Pizan, the book written by her, Book of the City of Ladies. This is the first book which has questioned the authority of men. Okay, one of the first to question the authority of men's writing. Okay, so we can call her mm, the first true feminist. Okay, if you, I don't know whether you have an idea about this one. If you have heard the name Ian Showalter, okay, Ian Showalter, one of the lady, she was associated with the feminist literature, and she questioned the same thing, that is the authority of men in the literature, or in the realm of the literature. So Christian de Pizan was the first lady. She was called as the so-called first full-time professional writer. Still, she was considered one of the first to question this authority of men's writing. That is through the book called Book of the City of Ladies. Okay. The next name I would like to tell you, or want to discuss with, that is the uh, Margaret Kemp. Okay, Margery Kemp. Okay, Margery Kemp. When you talk about the Margaret Kemp, she's famous for the book of Margaret Kemp, and uh, this dictated her work to two men, as she could neither read nor write. But yes, we can find that this is the lady. She, even though with this disability, she uh, neither read nor write, even though she dictated a book to the two men, and they have written down it, and it's became the one of the famous book of the period, and was considered as the early writings of the women writers. So this is the contribution of early women writers. So we can see that is even in the early stage of the literature, women's are the one who had played an important role. In that case, after this one, yeah, we talk about these writers like William Dunbar, Robert Henryson, William Dunbar, Sir William Lindsay. But in that case, these two names, which we had discussed, like Derrida's Desiderius Erasmus, I would like to repeat it for you. That is, Desiderius Erasmus was considered as one of the change maker of the society, or the writer. He was the one. His time frame is from 1466 to 1536. Uh, he has written this work, Praise of Follies, in 1511. Actually, it was written in Latin language. Uh, then it was translated in Greek in 1516. Okay, he was the one. He talks about the follies or stupidity. Mm, that was one of the important subject of the time. Even today, we can call it as assumable. आता stupidity कशाला म्हणायचं? और प्रेज ऑफ फॉलीजचा जो विषय आहे ना तो खरंच खूप इंटरेस्टिंग आहे. अं, पण stupidity, actually he just talked about the angles of stupidity and how you can put the things and in a box and how you can calculate it. ओके, तर लाईक तू स्टुपिडीचं आन्सर द्यायचं झालं तर एखादी गोष्ट जी आपल्याला स्टुपिड वाटते किंवा वी कॅन फाइंड इट्स काइंड ऑफ फॉली फॉर अस, when the other person see it from the other angle, he didn't find it kind of stupidity. Like let's say, uh, sorry if any one of you belongs to the Gen Z. So those who belong to the Gen Z, their things, their behavior, for these millennials, it feels like what they are doing. Okay, so it feels like stupidity for them, but the angle of their behavior or their thoughts is might be the different, which these people don't have an idea. So that thing this person talks about, Deridesmus, Desiderius Erasmus, what he says, that he talks about the follies of stupidity and the argument like knowledge is the base of all woes and suffering, based on this biblical reference of this Eve's fruit of knowledge. And then this is the treatise which inspired Hilary Belloc, a modern writer, to write an essay called In Praise of Ignorance. In Praise of Ignorance. आता मराठीमध्ये एक म्हण आहे की अज्ञानात सुख असतं. Okay. So, Desiderius Erasmus talks about this one, that is, knowledge is the base of all woes and suffering, based on this biblical reference of this Eve fruit of knowledge. आता ॲडम अँड ईव्हची स्टोरी आपल्याला माहिती आहे. जोपर्यंत इव्हने फ्रूट ऑफ नॉलेज ते ॲपल खाल्लं नव्हतं, दॅट इज द फ्रूट ऑफ नॉलेज खाल्लं नव्हतं, तोपर्यंत ते काहीच प्रॉब्लेम नव्हता, तोपर्यंत सगळ्या गोष्टी व्यवस्थित चालू होत्या. But after she ate that fruit of knowledge and she became wise, the things started changed. ओके, आपल्या गावाकडे तशी एक गावाकडचे लोक एक म्हण म्हणतात की शिकलेला तितकं हुकलेला, काय शिकेल तितकी हुकेल, असं एक म्हण म्हटली जाते. पण आता त्याचा त्या लोकांचं कॉनोटेशन्स वेगळं असतं. बट हिअर वी कॅन रिलेट इट, दॅट इज द वन who have an idea about anything, so that became, the idea itself became a base of all woes and sufferings. And the same thing Desiderius Erasmus talks about in his works, that is Praise of Follies. As we move forward, we have Thomas More. We just talked about it, but a um, bit details regarding this. That is famous for Utopia, 1516. It was written in Latin. English title is Kingdom of Nowhere. Okay, so you might have an idea about this utopian society. Okay, actually, utopian society never exists, but it's a product of humans' imagination. So it was translated by Ralph Robinson in 1551. Actually, this book, that is Thomas More's Utopia, is called as uh, Prologue to Modern Socialism, Prologue to Renaissance, and it's also called as a masterpiece of English humanism. Masterpiece of English humanism. It was divided in different books like Dialogue of Council and Discourse on Utopia. In this book, Thomas More talks about this ideal country where all people are happy, and we can find that is the influence of this Erasmus and call it on the great humanist of the period. So, basically, the philosophy written after this, or the philosophical books, mm, the subject philosophy itself is inspired by this book, where the central idea is that ideal country where all people are happy, and it was divided in different books like Dialogue of Council and Discourse on Utopia. Actually, we know that is there is not even single society where all people will be happy, but he had imagined such country where he feels that all people are happy and they're doing their work happily, living their life happily, in very joyful manner. And he just gives the example of it in Discourse on Utopia. Hope you're just getting my point. Yeah. So Thomas Mallory, we had talked about him. He was in prison for some time, and in prison he has wrote this work, Le Morte d'Arthur, written in 1485. It's the first compilation of all stories about the death of the king Arthur. Okay, we can find the King Arthur's work in Edmund Spencer's mm, The Fairy Queen. Also, we'll come to it soon. That was these 12 knight who comes uh, to the round table, and this story that is Morte d'Arthur is the first compilation of this all story about the death of King Arthur, and this is the work which published by William Caxton himself. Thomas Eliot composed the first English dictionary of classic Latin in 1538. So he is famous for his prose work. William Tyndale, another work, another person which we must have an idea. He was the one who just translated New Testament in English language. You know that is Old Testament and New Testament are the two important parts of the Bible. Means actually the editions we can call it. But they were translated by William Tyndale into the English. We'll talk about it when we talk about the translations specifically. Um, I have a specific subject or a specific lecture, or specific devoted time I would like to give for these translations of Bibles. We'll talk about it when we just move towards uh, uh, the 15th century. If we got time today, we'll discuss it today itself. I don't want to go for this development of drama today. Anything else? No. Okay. We'll talk about the development of drama in our later. Yeah. Let's move towards the uh, language part. So far, do you have any questions regarding this? Any questions? We had talked about the poetry and prose. Okay. Uh, we'll move towards drama, but drama was belongs to the 16th century. But before that, I would like to talk about these phases of Middle English. So I would like to move towards it, but before that, I would like to ask you that whether do you have any questions regarding this, whatever you had learned, or anything else. Any question? I said any question. बोला बोला, काही क्वेश्चन असले तर विचारा. तुमच्याकडे चॅट बॉक्स आहे, त्यात टाईप करून विचारा. Yes, any questions? Okay, so let's talk about the phases, three phases of Middle English. So, as we have an idea that is Middle English was the language of, first of all, it was language of inferior, as the Latin and French was into the picture. But as time goes on, we see that the Middle English language emerged as the great source of the literature, and this became one of the famous language after Norman conquest, and gradually it has changed. We can see that there is a change in scenario. English in decline. Means today, right now, we'll talk about these three phases of the Middle English and how Middle English in changed its scene from neglected language to the one of the powerful language. The first phase we have, that is English in decline. Written, this was 1066 to 1204 time frame. English aristocracy replaced by this Norman aristocracy, and we can find that English language was the language of mm, of the lower classes at that time. Okay, we can find this was a period where it was almost disappeared as a written language, and official language was were this Latin and French. But gradually things has changed, and English in accent come into the picture from 1204 to 1348. This was the time frame where King John's Lackland, he was the person who he lost the English positions in France and make French a loose important language in England. Okay, make French a less important language in England. And then comes the English, the language of communication, instruction, and less dialectical differences. You can find in 13th and 14th centuries, French not learned even by the children of nobility, as the influence of English language has increased. We can find the English trumpet triumph after 1348 to 1509 this time frame. The Black Death, uh, which occurs in 1348 to 1351, it's wipe out one third of the population, and we can find the shortage of labor over there in England, and that was increase the prestige of the language of two of the working class. As working class come to the picture, these people, they have to speak their language, that is English, with these lower classes, and this was the time we can find that is low English language started getting name and fame, or increase uh, kind of representation. That was the third stage. the Hundred Years' War, we had talked about it, which started from 1337 to 1453. Loss of all French holding and was no longer had any important reason for learning French. So we can find the decline of the French and uh, the development, or we can call it as the influence of the English language has increased in England up this period. Okay. I will just try to talk about the silent features of the English language gains maturity and popularity, and emerges as a perfect medium for literature. And from anonymous authorship like 1225, that is all until Nightingale, that is later towards individualism. We can find the development of English language from anonymous authorship to the towards individualism. Then reproduction of the books by hand, uh, that before of the printing press come, the manuscript undergoes the changes, and here also we can find the role of language of the common people was coming to the force. We have an idea about this oral quality, that is mesmerized text, hence and mostly verse was outstanding in the English language, and that's why it started flourishing. Printed books was very expensive, but still uh, we can find that after William Caxton come into the picture and he just bought with him this printing press in England, things started changing gradually. Originality of the literature was not a major requirement at that time, and that's why these translations were considered the original creation. And we can find that is most of the translations are getting in the language of the commoner, that is English. Religion was considered as the an important element of the social life. Renaissance was the stuff which we can kind of visit to Italy, considered an important part of this education, and then elements of romance, chivalry, heroism, and social satire was in uh, the increased in English scenario. So hope you just uh, got the point, and as we just move forward and try to find out these literatures and literature of period, we can find that it had played an important role. But again, we can also see that this was the period where a new kind of society come into the picture. Okay, the development of the society come into the picture. In that case, we can take the example of the Elizabethan age, which we are going to study in our next lecture. Basically, we, when we just try to find out an ideal stage of the society, we can find it in Elizabethan age. Okay, mm, Queen Elizabeth come to the throne, and then she started mm, making these changes, and as she has done some criticism with their enemies, we can find that this society society got this assurance that yeah, we are safe now, and then we can find the literature of the period has flourished a lot. Okay, so in our next lecture, what we'll try to do, we'll try to talk about uh, the English literature specifically, which has emerged as one of the greatest literature in this period. Um, Dramas, the development of drama. Then we'll try to find out uh, the English poetry, which was considered as one of the greatest of the time, and then specifically university beats. Okay, we all know that is drama. English drama has played an important role. Along with, we can see that English drama as it started playing a vital role. William Shakespeare was the person who had made these all changes possible in the all ways. Okay, he dominated the age. That's why this age is also called as the age of Shakespeare. But not today. When we just come for our next lecture, we'll talk about the what this special age, that is age of Elizabeth and Queen Elizabeth. First of all, we'll start with the poetry, then drama, then prose. We'll talk about the translation. Before, we'll have looked some historical background to this age, and we'll try to cover this historical background with some important events. Okay, like uh, uh, this Spanish Armada, like Queen Elizabeth defeat of Spanish Armada was considered as one of the great changing things in this regard. Okay, then we'll move towards the university which had played a very vital role in the development of drama in this period. But yes, we'll talk about the development of drama also, how the drama come into the picture and all stuff. Okay, still stay tuned. We'll meet and talk about these all stuff in our